Welcome to The Mode, the podcast brought to you by Eponymous. My name's Elaine and I'm here with Alan.
Hello.
And together we are the co-founders of Eponymous, which is an online marketplace for independent designers. So if you've listened to the podcast before, you'll know that The Mode was originally our blog, but we've made it a podcast because it gives us a chance to interact more with you, bring you the news and what's happening in the industry, let you know about new brands that we've discovered or that have come to us. And normally we have a topic for every podcast. So obviously we're starting off this particular podcast. Everyone worldwide has been affected by COVID-19. Obviously, retail is impacted, but the main thing is that everyone is healthy and well. So what we'd like to do is obviously thank the key workers all over the world. We are here for you. We support you. With our online platform, we are able to work remotely. Our brands work independently anyway. So from our stance, what we're doing is supporting the independents that are showcased on our platform. And if they are able to dispatch and make things for you, then they will. And obviously, if anyone's unable to at this point, then they let us know and they're no longer or not currently on the platform. But it's no surprise that it's impacting the retail industry worldwide. I mean, Alan, what's your thoughts on it? I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Primarily it's about making sure that we protect our key workers. Retail has to take a step back, apart from obviously food and medical supplies, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you need to make sure that the key services and key supplies are available right now. The industry we're in, you could argue that it's not key, obviously, with fashion and things like that. So that kind of takes a sort of side, backstage to everything else at the moment.
Yeah.
But
for us, sorry, on you go.
But we need to make sure, obviously, got one eye thinking in the future. What happens after this is passed, which it will do. And, with emergency services and everything in place at the moment, they're working their hardest to make that happen. So we have to kind of think, businesses and that have to think to the future, how to best prepare, what to do, things like that. So for retail shops and things like that, they've all kind of closed down at the moment. On a lot of online people and retailers have closed down because they have warehouses. It's a little bit different for us. We don't hold stock.
No, we technically come under drop ship, don't we?
Yeah, so a lot of people, the brands that we work with don't have like warehouses and things like that. It's because it's not that type of distribution network. So it's a little bit different. It's different for everyone.
And I think where we sit, we feel it's important to maintain the platform, because a lot of the brands, it might be their sole income, they might be a sole trader or a small independent with a small team. They need to make an income. They have to put food on the table. So it's very important for us that we keep the platform moving, because for some people, they need these routes to market because they still have to make money.
True. I mean, it's going to be very difficult with everybody else affected. And obviously essentials being posted at the moment, but I suppose there is a mindset that you kind of have to try and keep as many things normal as possible. So it's difficult, very difficult.
Oh yes.
At the
and
moment.
we already on you go.
Yeah, so I think it's people are sort of have one mind on the future, sort of like when this is over and a return to sort of normality, if you like. So I think people are thinking long term, how to keep businesses going, even if it's like on reduced operating hours or whatever it may be. And I think it's quite a sensible thing in line with what the guidelines are from governments at the moment, staying in, so on and so forth, only going out for absolute emergencies for like food shopping and so on and so forth. But I think where you can keep things running, then that that's something I think that could be quite advisable to do.
It's that balance, and we know some brands that we might have worked with in the past, or we just know them from the scene, that have either paused their business or they've had no option but to sort of stop it for where it is just now. Not just fashion. We know quite a few independents that are in the food and drink industry.
Yeah.
And through no fault of their own, they've had to pause it. That's quite scary for them because, again, they're not a big chain, they're an independent.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're able to move into home delivery, sometimes they're not. So we feel for them. This is such a strange time, but again, it all comes back to adhering to the rules, following the government advice wherever you are, doing as you're told and supporting those key workers.
Yeah, exactly. I think the faster we can support them, the better we can support them by not taking any chances, the faster this will be, or we'll be able to recover from this. So I think it's important that our priority is not to add to the problem, that the stress or the strain that the NHS, especially in the UK, I know other places around the world have got different, their health services are different, but in the UK, the NHS is just not adding to that kind of strain, which means being responsible, not going out, so on and so forth, and just kind of doing what you can to find that balance of not adding to any problems, and also if you can still, work, then that might be helpful. I know the government have announced various measures for people that can't. So yeah, it's just a question of working our way through it.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll pass as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So everyone can get back to normal.
Exactly. And that message for now is, unless you're a key worker, stay home.
Yeah, basically. Yep.
So moving on to our topic of the podcast. You may have heard of this term or you may not, wardrobing. So are you aware of what wardrobing is? It's a big problem within the retail industry, not just online, but also in your bricks and mortar stores. And believe it or not, certainly within the UK, possibly around the world, Alan's going to fill us in some more on this, it's illegal. And if you don't know what wardrobing is, it is buying clothes, wearing them with a view to knowing that you're going to return them after you've worn them to that event, that night out. So you're essentially, whether you like it or not, falling under the theft category. So, Alan, what really is wardrobing? I'm sure a lot of people might have returned things because it didn't fit, or returned it because they've wore it on a night out and there was an issue with it. But what's the problem with wardrobing, and why is it something that a lot of people don't realise is actually, in the eyes of the law, wrong?
Well, basically, it comes down to it's classed as fraud. So you're effectively buying something with the intent of using it for whatever it may be, and then returning it to get a refund. So that's where the problem comes in. It's different if you buy something, you try it on, you don't like it, you return it for whatever reason, or if it doesn't fit, for whatever the reason may be, that's fine. That happens, especially with online retail. A bit less so in shops, bricks and mortar, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with buying something online and returning it if you don't like it, or it doesn't fit you, doesn't suit you, whatever it may be.
You're actually protected by the law for that. You're allowed to do that because you are buying it without trying it.
Well, the rule is, for what we do, the rules are very straightforward. It's, if you buy something online, you have 14 days from the day it's delivered, not the day you ordered it. You have 14 days to notify the retailer that you wish to return it, and you then have a further 14 days in which to return that. So if you notify them the day that you receive it, you still have 14 days that period, and then a further 14 days. That's why it can be up to 28 days. But that's the rules, is you have 14 days in which to notify them, the retailer, that you want to return it, and then a further 14 days in which to return it.
And what I should clarify as well is wardrobing is not strictly illegal under consumer law, but because it equates to fraud is the part which obviously you're then moving into a legal minefield.
Yeah, it is an issue. It might seem relatively straightforward on the face of it that, it can be resold or whatever, but technically...
Especially if you're wearing it with the tags on, knowing that you've got every intention of taking it back. So you wear it out, tags on.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's second hand, and if you do return it with the tags on, then I suppose technically it is second hand, that the shop is then, or the retailer is then selling that, if they can sell it again, as a new product, but technically it's not a new product, it's second hand, or used, if you like, whatever you want to call it. But it does cost the retailers in the UK about $1.5 billion a year. So yeah, it's not a small thing, and I know a lot of people might think, it's an innocent thing to do or something like that, but it really isn't, because if you think about it, if you sort of buy it and you don't like it and you return it, it costs money to send the product to you. So you got postage, and there's also an impact to the environment as well. I know.
Oh, absolutely.
No, how impactful it is, but if you think about it, if you're buying something with the intent of returning it, then that's two journeys that item is doing that doesn't need to be doing, sort of thing. So there's an impact to the environment there as well.
And then also the ethical part, which is you can't have everything your own way if you choose to do that, and then you may be the first to complain that prices are going up. True.
It's just something that I don't think people should really should be doing at all.
And what's happening now is a lot of retailers, because it's such an issue and it is globally on the increase, a lot of retailers are now using specific tags that once you've taken it off as the consumer, then it's evident that you've chosen to remove it. You can't say that it broke, you can't say that it fell off. And there are a lot of companies now choosing to place their tags in a visible area, so no longer in the back of the item, no longer out of view. They're now choosing to tag in a very visible area so that you cannot keep the tag on, wear it and then send it back or return it. You have to make a decision to remove that tag.
Yeah, basically. I mean, there are retailers that are trying to work around it, but I think it's just that, how impactful it is on the retailer. You're effectively, I suppose in a way it's fraud, but you're effectively borrowing an item for free, essentially. I think it needs to be addressed. It's not something that's very nice for the retailer, the people making the products, so on and so forth. I think it's definitely something that is an impact on the industry.
And over the years, we've heard some unbelievable stories. We've been at events where brands have told us about some returns that they've had where people have insisted that they've never worn it, and there's been food down the front. The classics that you'll see on a lot of online returns policies will be if there's fake tan or makeup stains. These can happen if you're trying something on. You probably won't find this so much other than when you're in store, but for a lot of people that are trying on clothes and they wear makeup, it can be really easy to accidentally get makeup on the neck of a dress or an item. It's just an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
But if someone's returning something insisting that they haven't worn it, and it's got the fake tan, the makeup, the stale perfume, the cigarette smoke, and they're adamant, nope, never wore it, never wore it, that's a
Yeah.
challenge. It definitely is a challenge. So it's an area that you might be doing it and you didn't realise that it was illegal. I do know a few people that don't see anything wrong with wardrobing, and we've had that discussion. And they think that sometimes it's the price of the item and they can't justify spending the money on it if it was full price. Or they say, oh, it's a beautiful item, but I'll only be wearing it once. What does it matter? The next person that buys it will get far more use out of it than me. So I've definitely had this discussion. And sometimes I think that if someone's already made up their mind that they don't see anything wrong with it, you're just going to have to wait until the law really cracks down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are changes. I think retailers will introduce their own policies first. I know a few online retailers have. And there will be technology that comes out that does prevent it eventually. Whatever that may be, I don't know. But yeah, like you say, tags that aren't easily removed, or if you do remove them, it's obvious you can't put them back on, whatever it may be. I don't know. But certainly there is a probably the retailers are looking at definitely how to counteract this.
Yeah. So moving on to our topic of this podcast. Who is your style inspiration? Now, it doesn't have to be fashion. It can be someone in the public eye or even someone you know. Doesn't just have to be clothing, could be interiors, makeup, hair, just style inspiration. So we had a lot of great responses online, and it had me thinking as well that a lot of the time when you're younger, you're influenced by the people around you, but it's also quite amusing when someone that you grew up with is absolutely fascinated with someone at that time. And it could be that when you're younger, maybe your brother or sister absolutely loved Madonna and they dressed like them, and that can be so fun and nostalgic to remember because they might not have looked anything like Madonna, but you could tell the inspiration was there. Grew their hair to look like them, dressed like them, 100 bangles on each arm. And I actually remember, and this still makes me laugh, you might remember Neighbours in the 90s. Do you remember Lou? And he went out with Madge, and then there was actually a lady called Cheryl. So if anyone watched Neighbours, Australian soap, in the 90s, I remember, so I'd have been early teens, mid-teens, and my mum used to watch Neighbours with me. And Lou started going out with this woman called Cheryl, and Cheryl was about the same age as my mum, so sort of in her 30s. And as time went on, Cheryl always had like really nicely styled hair, and she wore really nice tops, and she always wore lots of long necklaces, really nice fashion necklaces. Like, you know, they're long ones that are so long you can sort of tie them twice over. And my mum announced that Cheryl from Neighbours was her new style icon, and every time we would go shopping, she would get so many fashion necklaces, loads of them. And Cheryl was her absolute favourite, and I'll never forget, about 6 months into deciding that Cheryl from Neighbours was her new style icon, the actress changed her style and changed her hair and changed everything, and my mum was furious because she only got 6 months out of being influenced by her style icon. But what's funny is, obviously my mum passed away in 2001, so that's a long time now, but I've still got all those necklaces, all those fashion necklaces, and whenever I see them I always think, oh, poor mum, she only got 6 months out of Cheryl before her style icon completely changed her style, and she was furious. So that makes me laugh. But for me, there's no one in particular, but I would say it's more of an era, and I always am really taken with the 60s and the early 70s sort of Biba era. I love Biba. Barbara Hulanicki, who's behind it. Just even though when I read about Biba and I watch the documentaries, you had to be extremely thin, and basically I'm not bigger, but I don't think I would have fit into any of the Biba clothes. I think you would have to have been tiny, really, really skinny. So even though I love it, I wonder if I'd have went to the Biba shop, if I'd have been like, I just have to look, or I'll just have to buy myself some makeup. Maybe go to the Biba supermarket element, the food hall, and get myself some beans because I'm not fitting in any of those clothes. But I still love them. I think they're amazing. And obviously, Mary Quant, such an icon of the 60s. But you know my problem at the moment is I love Mary Portas and I love Mary Quant. And I've started muddling up their names, and I now keep saying Mary Qantas, which is the flight company. So when I say Mary Qantas, you don't know if I mean Quant or Portas. But I do like Mary Portas too. I think she's, again, just someone whose style I admire. I just love how bold she is. It's simple, but it's really eye-catching. And the other one that I share with Thapi, who's on YouTube, left a comment saying again, Sharon Tate and Edie Sedgwick, who are two really iconic 60s obviously iconic icons, 60s style that just really do, they seem to define that time, and yet it's timeless simultaneously. It just, you look at those pictures and you still think that looks amazing now. There's nothing to cringe about in those pictures. You're not going to look back and say, what was I thinking? Because there's something about that defines the era, and yet it sits beautifully now.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone, whether it be fashion or again, even interiors? I think...
not so much fashion. I don't really think of it. I can't really think of anyone.
I know you like Joshua Kane. You do always, whenever we're talking about style, he always pops up as someone that you admire their design.
Yeah, design, but I do modern. But for me, style, I'm thinking the 60s. Yeah, I'm thinking cars.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking Jaguar E-Type, Porsche 911. Porsche 911, same kind of style, all the way through from the 60s till now. Same iconic. When you see that car, there is no other car like it, and it's the same basic kind of shape, style that was from the 60s all the way through.
And what is it about it that you think just speaks to so many people?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just...
Did they just get it
one of the
right? Like, there's something about it that just transcends the decades?
Yeah, it's just the shape. There are other cars that try to be, supposed similar to it. It just doesn't work. There are certain cars that when you see the shape, you know the car.
Yeah.
The Jaguar E-Type was the same. It was, again, just an unbelievable style, shape. And that's when, car makers were, really kind of, when you think back to some of the things in the 60s, I mean, I just watched that Ford versus Ferrari film with Matt Damon and Christian Bale, and it's a great film. Really enjoyed it, but just some of the iconic styling of the sort of architecture of the cars back then is unbelievable. Just some of the obviously the Ford GT40 is an icon itself. Obviously you don't see them about like you will a Porsche or anything like that, but just there's those type of cars that are created back then that just stand the test of time. Even though the E-Type, if you looked at it today, it's an older car, you can tell that, but it's just got class, just all the way through it. There are certain car manufacturers that are like that. When they create something that's just stands out. Jaguar, Porsche, Ferrari, they're those types of car makers that do that. There are others as well, but those spring to mind specifically.
I totally get that, because even if you're not into your cars, I've never really met someone that hasn't appreciated what you would call that classic car look or that classic sports car. You'll normally... Because sometimes I'll look at cars from 70s, 80s, 90s, and you can date them, and you might look and say, oh, that's so boxy, or look at that, that's the colour is so 70s, the sort of mustard yellows and the greens.
Well, 80s were quite boxy.
Yes, but then when I think of 80s, though, I think of the DeLorean.
That was unique in its day. But if you think 90s, you think bubble cars.
Yes.
Because everything went from like straight edges to rounded edges.
And I also think slightly angular. They were becoming, before that, it was almost as if the 70s were quite, I'm so generalising, not a car expert, but I do like cars. 70s to me seemed quite angular. And then the 80s, they seemed bigger and still quite angular. And then the 90s, they did start evolving. And then, as you say, then they started becoming, I don't think futuristic's the word, but when you compare them, I always think the 70s cars do look very sort of, like I say, angular. I can visualise them like lots of harsh lines, if that makes sense. That's just someone that is not a car expert at all.
Well, a lot of the cars you see people talk about today that are icons from the past, you know, all the way through. Every decade has one. Well, it doesn't matter really what the car manufacturer is, but every decade has had sort of standout cars that people look at and you think, I have a random question that you may not have the answer to. Why is it in the 70s, when you're watching American shows of that time, that they thought it was a nice design look to have like a fake wood panel on the sides? I can't answer that question. You sometimes look at it and it's this huge, massive car, and it's got a big green. They're usually those this green car with the massive wooden panel.
Yeah, like a fake wooden panel. And it was always fascinating to us here in the UK how soft the suspension was on those shows, because they would drive away and the car would be bouncing along the road, and you'd be thinking, why don't our cars do that?
A different suspension.
Yeah, why is that? Is that just because our roads are different?
No, it's not so much the road, it's the suspension of the car. I mean, not to go into it too technically,
yeah, this is a fashion podcast.
in the UK, there was I think it was from I remember when I was in the motor industry, it's McPherson strap, which was the type of suspension that we have on had cars over here, whereas in America, I believe it was leaf spring suspension.
Oh, that means nothing
which
to
is
me.
Completely different. It's just different suspension.
Basically, really soft, and you just watch the car bouncing along the road.
Yeah, completely different suspension.
That's just my take on all American cop shows from the 70s and 80s. They would drive away and the car would literally bounce away with this wooden panel on the side. That's it.
Basically, I mean, yeah, you did have some of them, the wooden paneling cars over here.
I'd love.
I believe there was. I don't know what it was. I can't remember if it was like one of those minis, the van type things.
Let me have a look at that.
Clubman. I'm sure there's something I remember that was like green and had wooden panels on the side. There was a specific car. I can't remember what it was though. But yeah, there are definitely.
I can understand why they
similar.
Beautiful car designer. I completely get that. So moving on to another style inspiration. Marzia says Armani, his collections are always amazing, each time elegant and timeless yet modern. Philip Stark and Kelly Hoppin for interior design, they're all really good shouts. Definitely.
Yeah.
That you can't beat. Again, we're back to what we were saying. Classic design that manages to incorporate an element of modern. That is the win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. And I know that Kelly Hoppin is currently on QVC here in the UK too. And she's really interesting to watch because she knows what she's talking about, and her range that she's created is very uniform. So what's great about that is if someone's not sure about where to start with home style, but they like her look, she's starting you off in a very affordable way, and she's guiding you with how she would do it, but then she's not constraining you to, and this is how it must be done. Because sometimes you do look at Instagram at the moment and all of the interiors are beautiful, but sometimes it looks as if everyone's just copying each other's living rooms. copying each other's bedrooms. And it's nice to see some unique element, because it does sometimes feel as if everybody's just doing the identikit. Do I have grey wallpaper, grey cushions, a big chunky woolen knit cover, something fluffy, something mirrored, something metallic? That's my room.
Yeah.
So it's nice, even though that's gorgeous and I love it, it's nice when you see something where you've put your individuality into it too. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, for interiors, I came across in a company that does different furniture as well, but Clive Christian.
All right.
They do like kitchens, and they do sort of bedrooms, bathrooms, sort of thing, that kind of thing. I love in the style that they do. You see some of the kind of concepts and some of the rooms that they've done are really, really impressive.
We'll have to check that out. Here's another one, Kitty. As a young woman at high school, the Diane Keaton look, the vest and the casual men's clothing, but with a feminine flair, like a vest with a floral print. Then older was the Laura Ashley more vintage look. I wore her dresses to every event. Sadly gave so many of them away. You don't think at the time, but you'd be like, oh, why did I do that? Now the originals are worth a lot. But I would go to Scotland for work and go to Laura Ashley, get the most beautiful dresses, fussy, pretty, and a more male-influenced casual clothing look. My friends and I liked wearing a loose tie and a nice straw hat. See, I love that. I think, the Diane Keating look, if you're into the Woody Allen films of the 70s, she just had it nailed. She looked very feminine, but she did wear, I suppose now, androgynous might be the term, but she would wear the male look, but make it look female. That's still a classic look. But again, it's not for everyone, but when you pull it off and you look super comfortable, it looks amazing. Yeah. And Laura Ashley, I don't know if Laura Ashley is now still in Glasgow. Obviously all the clothes shops are shut at the moment. Laura Ashley was still in Glasgow, but I know that's one of the companies at the moment that have been saying that they might be looking at closing, but I can't confirm that at the moment. But that's two really strong iconic looks there. Then we've also got Thapi again. I wasn't familiar with this person, Saba Azad, and it is a sort of cool beatnik look. And when I actually googled this person, wow, really, really nice, really eye-catching again. I love when people share their style looks and you don't actually know who the person is, and then you take a look and you think, why didn't I hear of that person before? But obviously different areas, you're going to know in your particular country who's that key person, who's that key actor, actress that everybody knows. Bands. Sometimes there's a band that's huge in Europe and they didn't make it to America, and you cannot believe that they can be so huge here but nobody knows them over there, and vice versa. But again, really strong looks.
I find different people on a weekly basis that you think, I've never heard of them, but you really kind of like the products or the style that they have. Do that constantly.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't need to be someone famous. It can be someone you know and you just think their style's just effortless. I really like it. Last one is M Spain. Now, I wasn't again familiar. Cafe Facet, knitwear and interiors, fell in love with it. And I agree, when I had a look, it was so colourful and so vibrant. And it makes you realise that sometimes we aren't aware that we have fallen into a uniform look, monochrome or block colours, and then you see that and you think, wow. And I am so sorry I cannot pronounce this, but Gudrun is what a lot of people are saying, Gudrun. And that's another current favourite of theirs. And when you take a look too, it's so eye-catching and makes you realise that there are a whole host of different style inspirations out there that are just there to be discovered. And that's why I think it's great for us to be able to put a shout out for the podcasts. Who's your inspiration? And in addition to us obviously talking about the classics and the people that just transcend all the decades, to hear about people that we haven't heard about before.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, definitely.
Again, we haven't covered some of the classics. We'll do that in another podcast. Just your absolutely classic designs, your design styles, those looks and those names are not going anywhere. Even if they are long gone through history and through their skills and what they've left behind, we'll never forget them.
Yeah.
And on that note, that's our episode finished for this week. It's been a strange time to live through, but again, we're navigating it together. We'll take each day as it comes, and all we'd like to say again is just take care of yourselves, stay safe, and we've all got to do as we're told. So hope you enjoyed that. Remember, you can find us on social media, Eponymous, the eponymous.shop website, or on YouTube, the Mode podcast by Eponymous. And take care. We will see you again soon.